back to 2622. We're streaming musical performances, mindfulness sessions, and educational content from Philadelphia and New York City freelance musicians during the COVID-19 crisis. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. If you like our content, please give us a like, a share, or a follow to stay up to date on our program, which we do expect to expand shortly. If you'd like to help 2622 continue to support our artists, please consider visiting our Patreon site. Details for that can be found in the description box, and you can also find links to our other social media there as well. Thanks for spending this time with us. Enjoy.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the SoulJorn on 2622. Why don't we start out right away by taking a couple of deep breaths in and out with me, okay? Breathing in and relaxing the body. Breathing in and out and relaxing the mind. Breathing in and out and releasing all resistance, all tension that we might be feeling to anything that makes us uncomfortable. Breathing in and breathing out. Just becoming aware of anywhere in the body where you might be feeling any type of tension. Does your mind feel tense? Then breathe in and out, relaxing the mind. Do you feel tension in your body from sitting? Understandable. Breathe in and out, deeply, fully. Think of that deep breath as your favorite comfort food. Maybe that's chocolate cake. Or if you're like me, maybe it's ice cream, frozen yogurt. Breathing in and out like you are just enjoying your favorite piece of pie. And releasing all tension from the body, from the mind. Allowing the sound of this brass bowl to enter into the sinuses, into the head. Some of us are dealing with allergies. This is allergy season. The weather's been a little bit different than what we would be used to in springtime. Maybe you're dealing with a little bit of a spring cold. So, the breath, the power of the breath. Welcome to the SoulJorn again, where I combine some meditative work and introspective work with some wonderful jazz meditations. Tonight on the SoulJorn, we're going to be dealing with the issue of cultivating stillness. What does it really mean to be still? Um, Many of us are challenged now to adjust our normally very busy and frenetic lifestyles, moving from one thing to the next, going to the gym, exercising, working, keeping very busy schedules. And now, with everything being shut down, we're prohibited from moving as much as we normally would. But what we're going to be sharing tonight is that the absence of movement is very different from true inner stillness, because we can be very physically still and yet have lots of movement and turbulence inside. And so we're going to be dealing with that just a little bit, looking into some ancient texts that talk about stillness, and then giving you some strategies in between playing and using sound to help relax our bodies. So I'll talk about that in just a little bit, but the first sound that I'd like to introduce to you, I'm going to be using this quartz crystal bowl, which you can't necessarily see on camera because it's on a stand next to me. I'm going to be playing a couple of these tonight. Usually I just play one, but I'm going to play two. So I'm going to start with this bowl, which is in the key of B, or the tone of B. And this particular sound is to help to ground us. So it'll work with the sacral and the root chakra. So the sacral chakra, the root chakra, for those who aren't aware, is located down between the legs. And the sacral chakra is just under the belly button. And those deal with our creative, our sexual, reproductive energy. And so when we're sitting quite a bit, as we sit all of the time and we don't move, those chakras can become blocked. So what we're going to do is just delve into some sound just a little bit and open us up, get things moving there energetically. So I'd invite you to sit still, breathe deeply with me, maybe close your eyes, get very comfortable. Just listen to this sound. Quote that we have posted on the screen. Can you coax your mind from wandering and keep to the original oneness? We're going to be addressing that text from Lao Tzu and from the Tao Te Ching in just a few minutes. Breathing in and breathing out. Bringing your body back into alignment through the breath. Can you all hear that frequency? That frequency. mantra that I sometimes use. I'm going to share it with you. It's Om Mani Padme Hum. Om, the root sound for creation. Mani Padme Hum. This is to help open us up from the sacral and the root upward, aligning us with the energy of compassion, which will become very important when we talk about stillness. It sounds like this. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. This helps to align us with the energy of universal compassion, which of course starts with ourself. Om. Just another couple of revolutions of this sound. Breathing in and breathing out. You can even, where you're sitting, move your hips just a little bit. Move yourself, move your pelvic area, and loosen up. If you're laying on the floor, like I know that some people have shared with me that they do when they're listening to this broadcast, and just slightly raise from the tailbone and push up. If you're sitting, just move your hips just a little bit. You can even stand up. You're in the comfort of your home. Breathing in and breathing out. Let me share this with you before we go forward. There's a very powerful way of breathing, which we use in the Qigong and Tai Chi practice, but it's also used in yoga, I believe. And that is that we close our mouths and we take the tip of our tongue and we put it right behind the teeth, sort of where the teeth and the roof of the mouth meet. And then we curve the tongue and we inhale through our nose and exhale through our nose. And this can help us to relax and focus the mind. There we go. Are we feeling more relaxed? What I'd encourage you to do is, if you're watching this broadcast, then I'd encourage you to put your questions into the comment section on whatever platform you're watching, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. And if I can't answer the questions here, then what I can do is I usually return and read the comments from people. So if you have any questions or comments or a simple response, I'd really welcome. And of course, here at Studio 2622, we would love those comments as well. So talking about stillness. So I'm going to work with a quote from the Tao Te Ching today, just a little short quote. I'll read the whole quote, and then we're going to go kind of section by section at certain intervals here, right? This quote says, "Can you coax your mind from its wandering and keep to the original oneness?" And you can follow along with the quote on the screen. "Can you let your body become supple as a newborn child's? Can you deal with the most vital matters by letting events take their course? Can you step back from your own mind and thus understand all things?" That's by Lao Tzu, who is assumed to have written the Tao Te Ching, one of the vital texts in Taoist philosophy. So many of us have been taught about the value of multitasking. So in our society, if you happen to be watching from the United States, then most of us have been raised to believe in the value of multitasking. And so many of us, my grandmother would say, have many pans in the fire, right? We're doing this and doing that. And so we're used to being on the go nonstop. And this is very much valued. And people who seem to be able to do that very well seem to be very successful, right? People who do many things at once. The problem is that neuroscience, the more that neuroscience develops, kind of parallel with self-reflective or contemplative practices like meditation, as it develops, neuroscience is telling us that we can really only deal with one thing at a time. The average person thinks, and this is average, about 60,000 thoughts a day. 60,000. But our minds can only focus on one thing at a time. So as we struggle to keep up with the pace of our mind, it seems sometimes, I know I've been in a position many times, where it feels like I'm kind of on a leash and I'm just being pulled along by my mind. Just being pulled along. There we go. That light was a little bright. Just being pulled along by my thoughts, not really even in control. And I'm sure that if we're honest with ourselves, most of us have experienced that at some point. So we attempt to multitask. For those of you who have children, getting them to all of their activities, balancing out your work schedule and deadlines. Some people have professions that require a lot or place a lot of demands on people's time, right? Teachers are one group of people that come to mind. You're usually at work well before your students are there. You're working all day, and even your break time is not really your own. And then you're working well into the night as you plan your classes. It's nonstop. And that's in addition to balancing out everything else you're doing. Getting your exercise, going to the gym, social functions, balancing out your personal life. So now everything around us has stopped, or almost everything. Gyms are closed, malls are closed, retail outlets are closed, restaurants, coffee shops, etc. Closed, at least in terms of being able to sit and gather and meet. I'm a musician. and a composer. I make my living in gatherings, or the majority of my living in gatherings. Tours have stopped. Recording sessions have stopped. Theater has stopped. Can't go to the movie theater. So lots of those places that we would normally use as our escape spaces or our safe spaces are not accessible to us anymore. So we're forced to be in the essentially the same space all the time, right? And so many of us are forced to confront what in Buddhism would be called the monkey mind. The mind that's constantly racing and bouncing. If you think about what a monkey does, bouncing, bouncing, bouncing from thing to thing. What happens, or what's evidence of the monkey mind? Well, the monkey mind makes it difficult for us to focus on one thing. We may sit down to read a book and we get through 2 or 3 pages and our mind feels distracted and we want to go do something else and we never get back to the book. Somebody is talking to us. Maybe we're having a video call, gathering with our friends, or maybe a loved one is in the house if you happen to be quarantining with family members or housemates. And they're talking to us and we're physically there, but mentally, emotionally, energetically, we're not really in that space with them, right? And so as we look at the subject of stillness, what does it mean to be truly still? I'm sorry here as I adjust this light, it's getting dark on the outside. So, what does it mean to be truly still? Physical stillness causes many people anxiety. And let's be honest about that. So many people that I know. In Spanish, many of my friends and family members would say, la falta de movimiento me da telele. The absence of movement makes me crazy, makes me feel unstable, or ansiedad, anxiousness, anxiety. So when we think about what that means, can you coax your mind from its wandering? Can you train yourself to sit still? Can you coax your mind from its wandering and keep to the original oneness? What is it to coax? What does it mean to coax? Kind of to nudge, right? Coaxing your mind or nudging it towards stillness. When your body is still, but your mind is racing. And keep to the original oneness. What is the original oneness? Well, the original oneness is the alignment, at least in Taoist philosophy, the alignment with your mind, your body, your spirit, and the alignment with the stillness of universal energy. Aligning to the original oneness. Some people would call the original oneness God. Some people would call the original oneness spirit. Some people would refer to the original oneness as simply the human spirit. Whatever you believe, with all due respect to whatever one believes. Can you let your body become supple as a newborn child is another part of the passage, which I didn't write out. In other words, can you really truly relax your body? To be supple is to be flexible, flowing, right? As a newborn child, when you think about a baby, I've seen people, they move babies' arms and they can bend the baby and they toss the baby and the baby just whee, right? Very flexible, very flowing. So one of the things, I'm going to give you this first strategy and then I'm going to play a little more music. My stepfather was a Native American man. And so he would sit with us in the house, maybe on a snowy day or a rainy day when we couldn't go outside and play. And he would say, we're going to play a game, and he called it the circle game. And the circle game was that all of the children would sit in a circle in the living room, television off. If it was very sunny out, lights off. And he would ask us to sit completely silently, in complete silence. He would say, for 5 minutes, we're all going to sit completely still. Just 5 minutes. And whoever could get to the end of 5 minutes without, not only without talking, but also without fidgeting, without using facial expressions to try to make other people laugh, but to be completely still. So this is kind of one of the strategies that I'd like to give you. If you have children in the house, or even if you're feeling anxious, turn it into a family game. For 5 minutes, we're going to sit and then come up with a prize. You're going to get your favorite snack. Whoever the winner is going to get their favorite snack, right? But learning to sit and to still the mind. Because if the body is still and the mind is not still, then eventually we're going to suffer because we're fighting against our essential driving force, which is our mind, which is thinking 60,000 thoughts per day. I don't know how many that is per second or minute, but so that's one strategy that you can utilize, particularly if you're quarantining with lots of people in your house, children, young adults, and you turn it into a game between the young adults and the adults, those who are in charge. Okay, so that's one thing. Now we're going to come back to this idea of stillness in just a moment, but for right now, what I'd like to do is to use for you now another one of my bowls. This particular bowl is for the chest, the heart, the solar plexus. Maybe our heart is feeling anxious, right? Maybe we're feeling some tightness in our chest and in our body. This particular bowl will help us. So as I move it just a little closer to me. And again, checking in with you. How are you feeling? How is your mind? How is your heart? Leave the comments, questions. Breathe in and out with me. Can you coax your mind from its wandering and align with the original oneness? Can you deal with the most vital matters by letting events take their course? And we're going to talk about that in a second. Can you step back from your own mind and thus understand all things? Breathing in deeply. The way that I showed you just a couple of minutes ago, put your tongue behind your teeth, up on the roof of the mouth, close the mouth, and breathe in and out through the nose. I'm not going to talk for just 2 minutes. Take a nice deep breath in and release. I want to encourage you, if you have some water with you or some tea, keep sipping your water. Warm water, not cold. Cold is not good for your system. Warm water opens up our circulation. It opens up our blood flow a little bit better. Warm water is much more gentle on the kidneys as well as on the heart. Cold water constricts. Just a little side note. So, thinking about our passage again. Can you deal with the most vital matters by letting events take their course? What is that saying to us? What Lao Tzu is saying to us here is that we have to release the need to control. Part of the thing that stands in the way of our inner stillness is when we're obsessed with the idea of trying to control outcomes and control situations. Can you let matters take their course? Life puts us in situations at times where no matter how hard we want to coax the situation or control or turn the tide of the situation, there's nothing we can do. And so releasing attachment. What do we get attached to? We get attached to outcomes. We are taught that we can control everything about life. And to a certain extent, yes, our decisions are very important. The decisions we make, the decisions that we act upon, very important, and taking responsibility for those decisions. However, when we begin to work towards something, let's take, for instance, and I'll use my own life as an example because I don't know who's watching and I don't know your life. I have worked my entire life as a musician, as a composer, and I have done the things that people have told me, that my elders, my mentors have told me to do or suggested that I do for most of my career. And I've had some very positive outcomes. But as I begin to work on something, there's another saying in the Tao further along that says, do your work and let it go. This is the only way to create anything that lasts. It's the great irony or the great paradox of life that what we want the most, we often have to let go of in order to achieve it. We work, we practice. In my case, I practice, I compose, I follow instructions, I tour. I'm very fortunate to tour and to put out my own records, as well as to work on other people's records. And sometimes we want those things to be very successful and we push, push, push. And so we're attached. We're married to an idea that we do the work and it will turn out the way that we want it to turn out. And that's not always the case. In this case, we don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty in the world around us right now as we are forced to sit still. And even though we have no choice but to be physically still in many cases, our mind still races trying to come up with solutions. And Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching is encouraging us to let events take their course. Can you deal with vital matters by letting events take their course? Can you deal with the most pertinent issue in the moment, which is the health and well-being of our world, but also how to deal with this, and be still and simply observe it, right? So observing, releasing attachment. I want you to take a moment, and I'm going to play another piece of music. This time I'm going to jump to the piano and play a piece of music. And while I'm playing, I'd like you to contemplate something that you're attached to, that you feel you have to control. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a job situation, an economic situation. And they're all very, very important to us. But think about one thing or contemplate one thing that you're really attached to, that you can't imagine not having in your life, and what types of feelings come up with that. I'm going to play this piece. One of my mentors, Mr. Onaji Allen Gums, transitioned just a couple of weeks ago due to complications from COVID-19. And about 2 years ago, I had started writing a piece of music for him called Don't Be Afraid of the Space. Space, openness, releasing, right? Because we had had this wonderful conversation where Onaji had said to me, man, everybody's worried about outer space. We need to be worried about the inner space. We happen to be talking about space stations or something, right? And Onaji was a wonderful human and gentle man. So I pulled recently this sketch that I had been working on, and yesterday just started to revise and sketch this piece. So I'd like to play a little bit of this piece called Don't Be Afraid of the Space, because I feel like it's pertinent to what we're talking about now. So contemplating attachment right now. Is there something you're trying to control that you can't seem to grasp? And is it causing you inner turmoil or fear or anxiety? What type of feelings are coming up for you? And I'd invite you to put those feelings or inbox those things to Studio 2622, and they'll forward them to me, and I'll be happy to respond to your comments and your concerns, okay? In private, because those are private matters, and I would never do that publicly unless one asked me to. For Onaji. So the last thing that I want to talk about, and this is more for the adults, I gave you some things to think about. Now, I don't know what types of things came up in your consciousness as you thought about, as you listened to the music and you contemplated attachment. But the last section of our quote says, can you step back from your own mind and thus understand all things? Can you step back from your own mind, your own thinking? In other words, the way that you believe things should be, and allow things to just be what they are without judgment. Stepping back from our own mind. Lao Tzu, in that saying, if you were to look at it in the original language, Chinese, it would really be talking about, can you step back from your own way of judging things and then understand all things? One of the hardest things for us to do, because we're all conditioned from the time we're born by our families, the value systems that they have, which are fine, our religions, our politics, our places of national origin. We all have different value systems, and we become married to or attached to those systems, and that causes us a great deal of suffering. It's not that we have to disavow ourselves of those things. However, in order to really begin to cultivate deep inner stillness, and adults, there's a reason Lao Tzu asked us to be supple as a newborn child. It's to go back to the child mind, or the innocence of the child, because we become very stern, very staunch, very, very firm in our conviction about what things should be. And this is a barrier to our own inner stillness. We should be doing this, or they should be doing that. And we become perturbed, and inner turmoil starts to move like a very, very, very rough moving river, or like an ocean where the waves are very, very, very harsh. So I'm going to place an image in your mind, and that is the image of still water. In the Tao, we deal with the idea of water very frequently. Imagine a pool of water, and you're looking at yourself in a lake, for instance, or a pond, or even just a pool of water on the street. If that water is moving, if it's disturbed, we're not going to get a very clear image, are we? More than likely not. We'll get an idea, but there'll still be some confusion because the water won't be giving us a clear image reflecting back at us. One of the ways that we can still the waters of our mind and create or cultivate real inner stillness is by practicing non-judgment, which relates to my earlier statement about attachment. The idea of non-judgment And please, I don't want you to think by any means that I'm saying I've mastered this, because we're all works in progress, right? But one of the exercises, or one of the very practical strategies that I'd like to leave you with, is this. Each day when you wake up, as you begin to center yourself and prepare to go about your day, think about the idea of not judging for just 1/2 hour. So you tell yourself, I'm not going to judge anything for the next half hour. That means when you go out and you get in the car and you start driving, the second that you're ready to say, what is wrong with these people? They don't know how to judge. That's a judgment. Stop yourself and remind yourself, I will not judge for the next half hour. Take a breath, reset. I wish that everything was. Stop yourself, remind yourself, I will not judge for the next half hour. And when you find yourself being conscious of your own judgments about the way things should be according to what you believe, then you have an opportunity to reset and open your mind, because a judgmental mind is a closed mind, and a closed mind doesn't allow us to see clearly the difference between what we're perceiving and what is. You understand? So sitting and working to bring our minds to the place of a still water, or a calm, still pond or body of water. So as I leave you tonight, I'm going to play one last instrument, which is one of my favorite instruments to play. For those who don't know, I'm a bassist and a vocalist. You can find some of my work on iTunes or Amazon or Google. I have an album called The Awakening, which is a jazz album of my compositions and some arrangements of other people's music, where I play bass along with my group. And you can find that, certainly. But this instrument, called the shakuhachi, is a bamboo instrument. It's a Japanese instrument, which I've been very fortunate to study with Nakajima Sensei in Hokkaido, Japan, and with one of his students here in the United States. I'm going to play this instrument just for a closing for you. I want to thank you all for spending this last 45 or 50 minutes with me here on SoulJorn, which is a journey of music and sound and ideas, primarily rooted in jazz, but utilizing, of course, frequency to connect us to ourselves. Thank you so much to everybody at Studio 2622 for doing all the amazing work that they're doing for musicians from New York as well as Philadelphia. And please leave your comments, leave your questions, and I'll be happy to respond to them. It would be my honor to respond to them. Until next week, be kind to yourselves. Be patient with yourselves. Cultivate stillness, because the stillness that you cultivate inside of you will reverberate out into the world around you. And you could be the person that brings just a little bit of peace into the lives of those you know as well as those that you don't know. arigatou gozaimasu. Have a wonderful evening.